Dear Jew in the City, why do Orthodox Jewish women wear wigs? Doesn't that defeat the purpose of modesty? Especially if the wig looks better than the hair? Thanks, Bree.
Thanks for your question. It's true, many wigs are very attractive these days. So what's the point of wearing a beautiful wig to cover hair? First, we have to understand why married Jewish women cover their hair at all. For that, we must go back to the Torah. The Torah describes an ancient ceremony of the sota, a married woman who was found alone with a man who was not her husband and is suspected of adultery. In order to determine her innocence or guilt, the priests uncovered her hair as an act of humbling. From here we see a biblical inference that a married woman's hair is otherwise covered. Did you cheat on your husband? Well... But then the Talmud comes along and has some disagreements about the origin of this commandment. One authority states that hair covering is a biblical requirement. Another says it is a standard of modesty defined by the community. The Talmud finally comes to a resolution and explains that covering the head is a biblical requirement, while the manner in which we cover the hair was defined by the women themselves. So we cover our hair because the Torah and Talmud say that it's law and an act of modesty. But why wigs? Wigs used to be a common and even fashionable way for everyone to cover their hair, including for Orthodox Jewish women. In the 15th and 16th centuries, and on and off again until the early 1800s, wigs could be seen on everyone from Queen Elizabeth to Mary Antoinette to George Washington. In fact, the trend to wear wigs continues even to this day. At first there was rabbinic pushback, but then many, though not all rabbis, came to accept the practice. But doesn't looking beautiful defeat the purpose of modesty in the first place? First we have to define what modesty, or tznius, is. Contrary to popular belief, tznius is not about looking ugly or unattractive. Tznius is about keeping certain parts of oneself private. The parts which require covering are called erva and have some innate sexuality or sensuality to them. According to Jewish law, a woman's hair isn't considered erva until she's married. Therefore, hair must not be overtly sexual, because if it were, it would never be shown. That's why wearing a wig to cover hair is not considered indecent. Then again, as any shampoo commercial can attest to, hair does have some innate sensuality to it. But what if a wig doesn't just make a woman look beautiful? What if it makes her look better than she'd look without the wig? Has the point of this mitzvah totally been missed? Well, what if a person looks more attractive in clothing than undressed? Would it suddenly be more modest to walk around with no clothes on? Of course not. The purpose of modesty isn't to look less attractive, but rather to create a barrier between one's body and the rest of the world. So too a wig is worn not to make a woman look worse, but rather to create a separation between her natural hair and all the men that no longer have access to it. While others may not know that she's covering, she does. She's reminded of her status as a married woman, and the power of her sexuality, and the responsibility to direct it appropriately. I hope that covers the question. Sincerely yours, Jew in the City.